All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, the London is Blue Blue. We're gonna be great. This is gonna go so well.
We've got it, lads.
All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, the London is Blue podcast. Hopefully, your favorite Chelsea podcast out there. Also part of the Men in Blazers Media Network. No Brandon this evening on Monday as we record after Chelsea blast Crystal Palace 3-1 in the dying minutes of that match. Dan here, though, alongside Nick, and we're going to try to walk you through and recollect this one. But as far as Mondays go, Nick, as far as a follow-up to the Super Bowl, that game had nothing on this one.
No, it was pretty intense. I think when you leave a game late, there's a lot of stress. But as the crowd and one great poet has told us before, baby, don't worry about a thing, because every little thing's gonna be all right. And it was, Dan. Every little thing was all right.
Like, you definitely had a better tone than the Viva Las Vegas rendition that Travis Kelce had at the
tough
Lombardi Trophy presentation celebration at the very end of the broadcast. But look, we're going to get into actual football, real football. That's right, Premier League and Chelsea. And we're going to try to recap this one at the start, the best way we know how, with the 3-word match review. And Nick, I know that people had a ton of thoughts about this one.
Yeah, lots of good responses here. We're just going to go through some of the best. Keep plugging them though, because there are some regulars in here and there are some newcomers. Snacks, a regular with late great Brace, Connor Gallagher. What's up? East Van Blues with Connor retires Roy with a nice gift from Euro 2012. That's a difficult one for England fans. Yikes. Beegs with Connor's Crystal Malice. That's a tough one to beat. That's a pretty good one. Craig Ledoux with Connor's Pure Profit. A little dig there. How about that? Matt Davies Adams, of course, of the Straight Out of Cobham podcast, I should say, with Sign Him Up. Should have already been done, Matt, but they still have time to do it. Ollie Glanville, friend of the show, with Many Munoz Memes. Jason Cassidy with Owning Nelson Road. Aaron Rourke with Supporters Serenade Selhurst, and Dan Dormer with
midfielders. 2 midfielders, 3 goals. Come on, you can't this get any better than that. I mean, you'd like your attackers to score 2, but at least one of them assisted both of the last 90th plus minutes goals. So look, I'm always going to be excited when a midfielder scores for Chelsea. It's a good thing.
Absolutely. And look, I went with a little bit of the theme of the day here because I thought it was great, and honestly, I love the crowd interaction back and forth after halftime while Oliver was getting his mic set up and the batteries had been thrown away, so no one had to listen to him. It was really weird how that happened. I went with 3 little points for 3 little birds, and really enjoyed kind of the camaraderie there. Both fan bases kind of singing, and it was nice. It was a nice little moment.
I mean, to be fair, there's not a ton of great atmosphere at Selhurst Park. We have been to Selhurst Park. We have been for both men's and women's team matches. We've been for the men's matches where there is typically a drum of some sort being played by the home supporters to build any type of energy and enthusiasm. And based upon their current form, you could understand the Crystal Palace supporters having a real hard time getting going at the moment, needing a little bit of support of their own to make something happen. Chelsea supporters didn't need that. They just went back to tried and true. They went back to some regular songs. They busted out a couple of oldies and goodies and got it done.
Absolutely fantastic. Away crowd the last 2 matches has been super impressive. And really, I think you look at those celebrations at the end and, the kind of fervor in that little tiny corner. We've been there, that little tiny corner of that stadium. And it was really cool to see. So big up to the away supporters.
Well, we want to thank people who support the podcast as well, not just the away supporters. So thank you to our amazing community. Little admin at the top, as we always do. Thank you to everybody leaving 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We super appreciate it. Thanks to those who helped subscribe on YouTube as well. We have cracked the 30,000 subscriber milestone. Super appreciate that. Don't forget to comment, like on the videos as well. And you also hit the notify icon. It's a bell. Lets you know when we drop a new video. You can get notified about that. It's pretty cool. You can also sign up for our free weekly newsletter that Sam writes as well. Definitely some great things coming with that over the rest of the season. And you also join our free or paid Discord community. No dollars required, but if you do, we appreciate it. So thank you for that. But we're going to get into this match. It was Crystal Palace this past Monday, the 12th of February. 2-day warning, and maybe a time of record. What time you listen to is a 1-day reminder. Valentine's Day coming up. Don't forget that one. There's no midweek match to screw you up from doing the right thing. So just FYI. Location of the match was Selhurst Park or Selhurst Park, depending upon how you view it. Crystal Palace won 3 to Chelsea. Lerma in the 30th minute. Conor Gallagher in the 47th minute with a Malagusto assist. Conor Gallagher again in the 90th +1 with a Palmer assist. And then Enzo cherry on top of the Sunday with a Palmer assist for the second time. But Nick, run us through the lineup. Let the people recollect who started and who came on.
Yeah, lots of interesting choices here. Largely an unchanged lineup from the away win at Villa last Wednesday. Of course, Georgi Petrovic making his 13th straight Chelsea start. Ben Chilwell, Thiago Silva slotting in as a change for the now injured Benoit Badiashile. So that's tough news. Apparently injured groin out for a month just as he was getting back. Axel Disasi and Malo Gusto made up the back line with Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez in midfield, a floating four of, however you wanted to kind of describe that, of Noni Madueke on the right, Conor Gallagher in the middle, and Nicholas Jackson on the left with Cole Palmer kind of floating up top. And look, some used subs. Nkunku comes on the 46th minute for Madueke right after half to kind of boost the chances that we have. Levi Colwill coming in the 61st minute for Silva, who got injured. Raheem Sterling coming in for Jackson in the 79th minute, and Alfie Gilchrist coming in the 84th minute. Only one goalkeeper on the bench, so progress. How about that? Trevoh Chalobah making a strong return to the bench. Very excited to see him after being injured all year. Mykhailo Mudryk, Carney Chukwuemeka, and Cesare Casadei make up the remaining subs.
Some of the top line stats, as it were: 0.55 XG for Palace to Chelsea's 1.2. That's right, both teams overachievers on the day. So gold stars for both teams. 23% possession to Palace to Chelsea's 77%. 13 shots to Palace for the 14 Chelsea registered. All 14 of ours came in the second half. That was -1. So 13. 13 of our 14 shots came in the second half. You had 4 shots on target from Palace to our 5. Both had 4 shots off target, and both had 5 block shots. Interesting. Only one big chance the entire match, and that came from Chelsea. We also were able to get a counter-attacking goal, which is a very, very exciting thing to register, and 10 shots in the box. 3 goalkeeper saves to Chelsea for the 2 that Crystal Palace registered. But a more impressive stat be the one that club historian Rick Glanville of the famous CFC podcast also pointing out that Chelsea have beat the same opponent, Crystal Palace, for a 13th league game in succession for the first time ever, which means Crystal Palace have been in the league for a long time, and Chelsea have usually beat them with some level of regularity, particularly in the last couple of seasons. So we appreciate that. That feels nice, but more prestigious honors await. That is the winners of the MPET Shithouse moment of the match.
Yeah, that's correct. In a match like this, there was a lot going on. There were some tackles, there was some nonsense during the game, but really at the end of the day, there were 3 main contenders for Shithouse moment of the match. The first, an excellent Disasi celebration, flying into the crowd, doing a trust fall after Connor scored the winner in the 90th +1 minute. Absolutely shithouse. Connor tried to get into the crowd, was rebuffed, and the Disasi said, absolutely not. I'm going to fly over the hoarding into the people, and whoever caught him really well done because there was some velocity in that. And that was fantastic. The second one, Nico Jackson, despite having been subbed for a period of 12 minutes before this happened, somehow made his way over to the Sellies from the bench, got yellow carded for his troubles, which was really interesting. That was his 9th yellow card. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And then Petr Cech, my winner of the day, in the Sky Studios, talking, you have one of the Premier League legends. You have a guy who did executive work under the previous regime. The Sky Studios had a Chelsea game on with no other games on, and all they wanted to talk about was Xabi Alonso to Liverpool, like fucking Muppets, idiots all around over there. But Petr Cech giving Jamie Carragher the biggin after Connor scores the winner in the studio. Absolutely epic. Love Petr Cech. And I think Dan, is my winner of the shithouse moment. What about yours?
I don't know. D-Saucy embracing a rock star persona and doing the backwards fall into the crowd to get
epic
held up. Come on, man. That is not something you see quite frequently. And look, we've been asking to see more togetherness, more squad unity. And so, look, Petters was great. Nothing bad to say about the legend, but you got to give it to the player who was on the pitch. You got to give it to D-Saucy. I will say, Nick, I know you and I have a very differing set of opinions when it comes to the Nico Jackson joining in on the celebration. Mm-hmm. And I did run a poll. I may have stacked the deck in my favor just a ton.
Read the full question so that people understand how much you stacked the deck. Jason Kelsey on his own podcast.
We're all good with Nico Jackson joining in the celebration and getting the yellow, right? Option 1, yes, of course. Option 2, no. Parenthesis, fun please. Close parenthesis.
Boy, what an unbiased phrasing you use there, Dan. Look, let me, as a possessor of minority opinions my entire life, let me share my minority opinion here. If Nico Jackson had not already had 8 yellow cards this season, and the only reason he doesn't have more probably is because he was gone for a month with AFCON. If he didn't already have the 8 yellow cards, having already served a suspension for getting the 5, with a looming 2-game suspension for getting 10. So he's now 1 game away from getting a 2-match suspension for ill discipline. Fuck it. Why not? What an incredible thing it was. I love the gesture. But you can't do that on 8 yellow cards. It's going to fuck us later on when he's not available, and it's because of stupid stuff like this and kicking the ball away and yelling at referees. He's going to miss 3, 4, whatever matches this season because of ill discipline. I mean, save it for after the match. Give it the big and after the match. I don't care, but he's going to miss 2 matches, Dan, in a pretty important run in, and that's going to be super frustrating, and it won't be as fun or interesting then.
You're right in the sense that the context of the moment versus the context of the season, particularly the matches ahead, City away, which I don't think most people are expecting any type of results. I think if you are the most optimistic, ludicrously optimistic individuals among us, and the League Cup final, which would be a game that you absolutely would want Nico Jackson involved. You really want him involved in both, but he's going to have to improve next season. But I don't know. I mean, we've been so pressed to see the fight, to see the desire, to see the intensity. I get that he has accumulated a bunch of dumb ones over the course of the season and needs to work that out of his game. But I don't know. This felt like this was the yo-yo moment, right? Like where Chelsea's results continue to yo-yo, where it's like, oh, this great game against Villa. Oh, we absolutely just shit the bed when it comes to being able to beat a very gettable Crystal Palace side. I don't know. It was stacking momentum to me. I get getting caught up in the moment. It's a young team. I'm not surprised that anybody made the mistake in celebrating and getting carded. I just think that this is something that in the future, Poch is going to have to work with all these guys to get them to recognize the moment. But in the day, I'm sort of okay with it.
So I will clarify. If he gets 10 yellow cards before the 32nd game of the season, we have now played 24 matches.
Okay.
He has to survive 8 more matches on 1 more yellow card. I don't know, Dan, you think that's going to happen?
Yeah, that's gonna happen. That's
For
gonna, that
for
is
sure.
so
Yeah.
happening.
So that's 78% that was like, fuck it, whatever. I don't want to hear one complaint when he is 2 game suspension and we lose a stupid game because of that. That's all I have to say. So, whatever.
All right. Well, we're going to get into the match in just a moment. We're going to take our first ad break. So thank you to our sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, Nick. So it's a midweek match or a start of the week match. I don't know. It's not a weekend game. It just
Monday
feels weird
matches
to have a
are
game on Monday.
terrible.
It's dumb. But anyway, it means that you're coordinating around work. You're trying to figure out how to get this fit in, and I just take notes for me. So I took a bunch of notes. I figure I'll throw out some headlines to you for my notes, and then we can talk about the things that are interesting to you. Hopefully, the people enjoy that. So here's a couple. Chelsea don't register a shot in the first 15, first 20, first 25, kind of continued on and on and on. The injury to Betty Shield, seeing Thiago Silva start and the impact of that. A lot of questions there. Why that means we might see less Silva from the remaining parts of the season. Cole Palmer being a non-factor in the first half. Madueke struggles, and really Caicedo not having a good first 45 minutes. Those are some of the things that stuck out to me in that first half. Anyone, pick your fancy. Let's jump into it.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the Batty Shield injury because I think, look, I say this with all due respect to Thiago Silva, who has been and is now in his 4th year with us after joining, in 2020-2021 season where we won the Champions League. It is for the play style that Pochettino wants to deploy, right? Which is a choice. That's a significant choice that Pochettino has made. He wants to play a more aggressive, higher pressing, higher intensity passing game than what Graham Potter did, what Thomas Tuchel did, what Frank Lampard even did. He really wants to have a go and press up and play balls in behind, and the team doesn't always pull it off, but that's kind of the style. It means that we have to play a higher line to do that because it's really tough to do from your own, basically from your own box, to back up that far. Silva has really struggled in the last 10 matches to do that effectively, to play the style that I think Poch wants to play, and that's a difficult thing because he's felt immortal for so long. He's felt, because his play style was so classy, because he could advance the ball in different ways than maybe Cole will or Batty Shield or whatever. It's becoming, I think, a little bit of a liability now. And I think while he wasn't, the worst that he's been this season in this game, I think it was noticeable when Colwell came on that we started to ramp up the pressure a little bit. That the team was able to play a little bit higher up because we had the speed to get back if we needed to on the break. And Colwell's not even healthy, like he's not even fully fit. Obviously, otherwise he probably would have started, right? So it presents a real problem, I think, for Poch because I think on merit, Silva has had some really good performances this year and some dynamic play and has scored a couple of goals and he's seen as a leader. But if we're going hot hand, and especially getting injured today, and we won't know the extent of that for a little bit, I just don't see how you can afford to play him in a back four. Especially when you're thinking about City, especially when you're thinking about Liverpool in the Cup, so on and so forth. So that is just my little soliloquy. I really do love Thiago Silva, and I hope this isn't like besmirching his name to say that. I just don't think the play style fits him and his skill set where he is right now.
Well, so Thiago Silva came off. for injury concerns. Pochettino indicate that it was a groin. He's going to need to be assessed. Doesn't necessarily know what that means for his availability for the remainder of the season. I try to think about this from the context of what happens beyond today. And I will say there was not a lot of great passing lanes in the first 30 to 40 minutes of the game. When you look at the distance from where Thiago Silva was to where our midfielders were, and not necessarily anywhere close enough to him, most of them marked by one of the Palace players, I think that made it a little difficult. But I do agree with the overall assessment that when Badiashile or Levi Colwill was in there, a little faster, a little more desire to kind of move the ball forward quicker, less sitting on it, trying to find maybe a more intricate pass, intricate angle. 16 matches left this season. It's about 40 minutes. Maximum of 19 if we advance all the way to the FA Cup final, 1,700 minutes. So let's just say somewhere between 1,500 to, 1,600. Most of the matches right now are going to have 7 days in between last kick from the final whistle to first kick on the next whistle. The only real run of games between now and the end of the season where there's going to be less days, cup final, 5th round of FA Cup against Leeds, Brentford. Those are going to be the short turns. I almost wonder, again, not wishing that he have any injury, right? I would want all our players to be available and healthy and be giving Poch selection problems and headaches. I'm kind of wondering how many more minutes he's going to have this season. Is it a couple hundred? Is it a few starts? Is it maybe one last opportunity in front of the Stamford Bridge faithful near the very end of the season? I think if we have players stay healthy, if Levi Colwill can stay healthy, if Badiashile comes back at the end of the month and after a month and is ready to go, Thiago might just become the rotational guy. He might become the senior statesman and not see a lot of the playing minutes or the pitch. And if you're thinking about not just now and what we have to do for the remainder of the season, but getting ready for next season and building upon this idea of a project, it would make sense to me for two reasons: to try to reduce the dependency on him and to get you playing better, to get you playing faster, quicker, more direct, more intentional in the way that Badiashile and Colwill can with that pairing with Disasi, or even Trev Chalobah coming back healthy. I think Pochettino is going to have some options where he doesn't need to rely on Silva, doesn't need to rely on Sterling, can try to build on this core of young players, get them the experience they need. And it would, in my mind, come at the benching of Thiago Silva for more minutes than not through the remainder of the season.
Yeah, it will be interesting because, like, in a vacuum, I would say you're right, but none of our, outside of Disasi, who has been a warrior this year just from an availability standpoint and playing multiple positions and being incredibly physical at that. None of our other center backs have been able to stay healthy. None of them. Even Colwill.
Except Thiago Silva.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and now, maybe he's a little injured and you would understand why, having the amount of minutes that he's already played this season. But it really depends on the other guys. If Badiashile's able to come back from injury again for the third time this year, if Colwill is able to come back from this latest, basically month off injury scare, then we'll see. But if they can't, what other fucking choice do you have? I mean, like that is I don't think there was any world really realistically that Thiago Silva was supposed to play this much for Chelsea over the last 4 years. I think that when you look back at his entire tenure, it's because everyone else has been injured at some point or another, right? And yeah, the back three worked, right? Because he could essentially play that floater sweeper role and do a very kind of low impact, high efficiency job out of that role with the other, kind of other right and left center back kind of doing some of the hard running and closing down and stuff like that. But I mean, you really think about him in a back four, that's a big strain. So Yeah, I mean, it's shocking to talk about because he has been so incredible for us, and I want to pay him all the respect that he rightfully deserves for being a warrior and a hero and all that sort of stuff. But I just don't. I can't see a world if everyone else stays healthy that he's playing a ton.
As we talk about some of the other things, I think the attack in the first half was a major issue. No shots on target, no shots for a significant period of time. Crystal Palace finding more favor with less of the ball. I mean, we had over 70% possession and couldn't get anything going. It was that challenge of the low block again, where Crystal Palace held some good lines, kept their players in position, made it difficult for Chelsea to find rhythm, got disrupted. But interestingly enough, there was still movement on the right hand side, and this is where I think the Madueke question I had comes into focus for me. It felt like as much as we found some opportunity to praise him for a prior performance, the inconsistency, and this is what Pochettino talked about, the desire for consistent results. This wasn't a consistent play from him in terms of being available both forward and backward. Felt a little off on the defensive responsibility, maybe struggle a little bit more. Cole was kind of absent in the first half as well. And it's not just a Madueke problem. Like this is all of them, but I felt like Cole being kind of anonymous and Madueke really struggling from a defensive standpoint too didn't make it any easier in that first half.
No, and I look, I don't think it was a particularly it wasn't set up particularly for him to have success. If I'm honest, like Palace were kind of sitting deep and were pressing out of a very low block, and he's a dribbler, right? He has to have his foot on the ball to have an impact, and they were double, triple teaming. They were essentially playing two banks of five. Sometimes Mateta would play that lone striker, so it'd be like a 5-4-1 formation, but they were staying super narrow. And if you're going to try and have Gusto overlap you, that doesn't leave Madueke with a ton of room. I don't think he was the biggest problem that we had in the first half. I just thought the pace of play was really, really bad. It was more sorry ball than Poch ball. And I said that at my halftime tweet, just saying like the energy's low, the game plan sucked. It was sorry ball esque. It was casual at times in the way that we were playing. Like there were a couple of really bad giveaways from Caicedo in midfield that were just lollygagging on the ball that just weren't, smart plays out of someone who should be a little bit more aware of his surroundings. And of course, me and everybody else who could see the game with eyeballs said it's time for Nkunku. If he's anywhere near 45 minutes fit, I'm ready to go. Like you have to bring him on. You have to bring on a game changer. You have to make them fear what you can do through the middle, because clearly they didn't really care about Palmer floating in and out. They weren't that worried about that. But when Nkunku came on, that's a whole different deal. We moved Jackson in, and we'll talk about the second half in a second.
Yeah, the Caicedo one was interesting. I think that you saw in the first half, I think the partnership of having Thiago Silva behind him is not as stable as what we saw with the relationship with the Disasi Badiashile or even the Disasi Colwell backing behind him in terms of who those center backs are that he's interchanging with. I mean, he had a pretty bright red heat map across the right hand side from basically the front of our box to the front of front of their box, and that he dominated. I love that he is starting to put passes further forward to try to create some switch of plays to take advantage of the technical aptitude for the game that he has. I think it's just going to be a matter of some of those passes coming off a little bit better. I mean, this is to say, like, he had 96 out of 101 accurate passes. He had 119 touches in the game. Like, he was involved a lot. A lot of that was much better in the second half than it was in the first half because the first half was slow. Once we started moving at speed, I think we're seeing a little bit of what he can really do to help get this side going, help get this side moving, to get the ball either across vertically from left to right, or to get it up and create some momentum, create some kind of quick chance opportunities. And so I do think we're seeing more of his range of skills. I just think it's maybe not, wasn't a full complete performance from him today. But in general, no one had a good first half from Chelsea. So we'll close the chapter
Awful.
on that one and go to the second half right after this break. We'll talk about all the goodness. So stay tuned. Be right back. All right, Nick. So I had a bunch of notes from second half, and they're generally a lot better. I think you probably want to start on the Nkunku swap in from Madueke and how that changed it. But I also want to talk about Gallagher's season, Silva getting injured, Colwell coming in, had probably the second biggest impact on the game in terms of how we were playing, how we were moving the ball, what that combination between Nkunku and Colwell was, the Gusto coming off concern, how we left it late, but we got it done, which hasn't always been the case, Palmer's influence. I think there's a lot. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think you do have to start with the change of shape in the second half. So clear that the management staff, Poch, were not happy with what happened. Nobody was, and I think they changed it up immediately in the second half, which is it was probably about 30 minutes too late, but here we go. So Jackson moves in to basically play as a second striker with Nkunku. So that is a little bit different than him being kind of isolated out on the wing. Gallagher and Palmer kind of occupy those like more tucked in wing spaces. So it's kind of a pseudo 4-4-2. And obviously, with the injury to Silva, Colwell comes in. And so the shape gets a little bit more defined. There's more threat coming through the middle because Palmer's also cutting inside. Gusto's left with a ton of space outside. So is Chilwell. And Palace did not look like they knew really what to do with that. Now, all that being said, it wasn't like it was the most brilliant offensive half of football that we played either. We score very early in the second half, and then it kind of goes quiet for another 20, 30 minutes. And so, I thought the changes were good. They didn't have all the immediate impact in the world. Obviously Gallagher gets the goal. We'll talk about him next, but it was a good recognition that whatever we set out to do in the first half was just not good enough, and we needed to do something else. And I know that you have in here that Nkunku is still maybe not ready to start. They're being extra careful with him, but even the runs that he was making, the minimal touches. I mean, he didn't see a lot of the ball. They were very occupied with him, which allowed a lot of space for everyone else.
Oh, look, sometimes a decoy is required to create some opportunities for other individuals. I do want to heap some praise on Conor Gallagher for the performance, but I want to talk about the Silva injury because I think that actually was the larger of the two changes, because when you look at the fact that Chelsea we're finding some rhythm after Nkunku comes on, but the 61st minute when Silva gets injured, Chelsea had 13 shots in the second half. 10 of them came after Thiago Silva went off. So we double the volume of shots that in the second half that we take compared to Palace taking. They only had one shot on target that whole time. 5 shots were blocked, 0.37 XG out of their 0.57, right? So they actually had a better XG, even though it was still terrible. Like, that was what really unlocked the side, finding quickness, finding pace, getting out of their heads a little bit in terms of slowing it down, trying to recycle. I mean, we kept possession. We maintained the ball. We didn't give Crystal Palace a lot of opportunity, which I think is where Conor Gallagher gets an opportunity to step in and says, oh, you know what? I'm going to make these runs from deeper position. And so as whether it's, Cole Palmer on the end, whether it's Malo Gusto, whether it's Nico Jackson, players are getting deeper into the box, getting deeper in. Now there's an opportunity for that cutback, for that pass backward, space in front of the goalkeeper, defenders occupied. Oh boy, Conor Gallagher loves him a goal against Crystal Palace, loves him a goal at Selhurst. 3 of 5 have now come against Crystal Palace. Man, he's not. Does he not remember his time there fondly? Like, what's going on?
He does. I think it, it's just one of those things, that, he knows the ground that, pretty well. And he was getting a few jeers. I don't know if you heard that in the first half. And so, whatever fires you up, man. Let's get it going. And look, let's just talk about the two goals for a second. I mean, first goal, absolutely fantastic finish. That ball had hopped up on him, and he had to really raise his foot and bury that thing in the back of the net. Absolutely fantastic finish. Second one was super impressive to me because he pulled back. He saw that Nkunku had already kind of taken the forward position for the cross. He pulls back and was like, send the ball to me. I'm right here. And was found by Cole Palmer, of course, and he slots it right in the bottom corner. We don't do that enough. That goal was excellent. And I thought his spatial awareness was tremendous. He really showed up today when it counted. And, when we think about the story of this year, Conor Gallagher is one of those stories now. Obviously, didn't have a goal this season until we played Villa the other day. Now has 3 in 2 games. Sounds pretty good to me. He has 3 goals, 6 assists in all comps now. So he's nearing the 10 goal contribution mark, which I think a lot of people who are maybe not the biggest Connor fans would probably find surprising that he's near 10, which is nothing to sneeze at for a midfield that hasn't produced maybe the most goals this season. And, I think his relentless running in the second half, allowing, Chilwell to overlap and to provide space for other players was excellent. I mean, truly, truly excellent. So Conor Gallagher, hat tip to you. Excellent job today. And hopefully, Dan, maybe it just takes one goal going in to fire that engine up.
I mean, it seemingly has also worked wonders for Enzo Fernandez. So, I mean, that would be the ideal story. And when you think about the fact that now at 9 goal contributions across all competitions, that puts him only 2 behind Nico Jackson. I mean, he has 3 less. Because Cole had 7 plus the 2, so it's 9. So he'll have 3 less assists in terms of total assists that he's registered, but that still puts him right up there along with Malagusto in terms of the number of assists that he's had this season. Like, he's finding a way to get involved, and he is doing what Pochettino needs him to do, whether it's harass players, press relentlessly, develop a third lung so that he can go for another 90 minutes on top of another 90 minutes. I don't know what he would have to do to convince the people who've decided that he's not at the level, that he's not right for Chelsea, to ever get on his side. I just think that is, you see a player, you've defined him, you're not willing to change your opinion on him. That's the reality of the situation. He wouldn't be selected regularly. Like, there would be a way to shape or change the formation if he wasn't adding value at the time that he has on the pitch. And look, he's had some bad games in the past 4 or 5, 6 matches. Like, I'm not saying that he is a perfect footballer in any way, shape, or form. This was just one of his best matches that he's played this season.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's because he's fit. He is able to make that run in the 90th plus 1 minute and be there on a counterattack, right? Because he's fit and available. He's playing all these matches in a row when we have plenty of players who can't stay fit, can't stay healthy. 9 goal contributions from midfield for him, 7 for Enzo now, all goals. These are not numbers to sneeze at. I mean, we talked a few weeks ago about how much better Chelsea have been scoring goals this season. Now we've also been worse at conceding goals. So the ratio, I think, is about the same, and it's why we are where we are on the table. But goal scoring is getting a little bit better, I think, in the way that the movements are happening and the way that some of the shots are going in. Do I want to see the team take more shots, especially from outside of the box? Yeah, hell yeah. Let it rip, man. Especially Connor, like, he has that in his locker. We've seen it. But you start to pile up those goals from other places than the striker role, the traditional number 9, and good stuff is going to happen.
So I think where I'd like to go next is maybe just Malagusto didn't need to come off late. Like, that was a concern given the fact that he's been assisting the last couple of games. He's the fit right back. the one fit right back on the team at the moment.
Yep.
Reece James rehabbing, getting a chance to enjoy some NBA action, a little Vegas action. Perfectly fine with that. I have no question or concern about where a player is or isn't doing their rehab. Just go to the best place for you and get back and fit and ready to go if you can. I have no concern about that. Apparently, some people do. I have no concern about that. However, I have concern about Malo Gusto and his fitness because he's getting played a ton in the absence of another individual who could deputize for him. And we saw Alfie Gilchrist come in again, who's just going to vibe his way through whatever performance and appearance he gets from Pochettino. He really enjoyed the goal celebrations too. My man definitely enjoyed them as well. Poch did have a comment saying, I think when we assessed Gusto, we brought Gusto back to try to compete with Reece James. He's really, really young, but now with the injury of Reece James, he needs to play and play a lot to compete in every single game. He did mention, Nick, that it was a fatigue situation, but I think in general, until we hear on Friday what his condition is, we are going to be concerned a little bit on pins and needles because we really need him. Maybe not for the City game. I almost feel like do you risk him for the City game when you know you have Liverpool coming up and you really want him for the Liverpool match?
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. I mean, to be candid, Gusto was my man of the match today. I thought he was excellent. I thought both offensively and defensively, tremendous. Recovered really well on the counter, and they did counter quite a bit. Made some tremendous passes into the box that were not converted. Really ramped up in the second half too by providing a lot of extra width to the attack to allow other players to get into goal scoring positions. Obviously got the first assist, but this is a player who, if healthy, we've seen how good he can be this year. Now, per Poch's quotes, not the finished article, right? But someone who is invaluable to this team right now. We've only had how many matches of just him and Ben Chilwell playing in fullback roles this year? 4, and 3 of them have looked okay together. Two of the 4 have looked okay together. So I don't know. I'm hoping that he's okay because it is a tremendous load that is put on the fullbacks, and if we lose him for any period of time, Godspeed, and it's going to be difficult.
I want to talk about another player, Cole Palmer, who, as we mentioned earlier, kind of anonymous, went under the radar for a full 90 minutes, and then said, "No, dog, I'm still here," with 2 really, really fantastic assists. I think the second one that he gets credit for, he should be thankful that Enzo had some really, really slick moves because that's like an assist that was like, that's a gift to Cole Palmer. A great pass. Enzo had some real great heads up play there to convert that opportunity. But I think that shows you just how valuable his contribution is, particularly when he could play just a little off the forward player. So, Nkunku in that case was able to play just a little off him and took some high risk passes with real precision in the way that he delivered them. And again, they're not always going to come off, but he's a high volume passer. He's very technically astute in the way that he plays. He isn't always I'm running. I'm not Conor Gallagher or Cole Gallagher, a combination of. He doesn't have 90 minutes of nonstop fouling in him to contribute, but he popped up when you needed him, and just I think has an eye to impact the game. 16 total goal contributions this season. He leads Chelsea and likely will run away with that this season. He still is the individual with the highest number of league goals at the moment. Nico Jackson would need 3 more to equal him there. Looks like he probably will get that one too. I would love to be wrong, but just having a great overall season for us.
You're talking about just in the league.
Just in the league, yeah.
Okay,
just
in the league. He's at 20 now.
Yes.
I think total.
Well, he'd be at 21.
21, with the 2 assists.
2 more assists, yeah.
It's good living
Pretty
if
good.
you can do it. He's been unbelievable. I think when Nkunku starts to play regularly and they figure out this 4-4-2 thing that they're trying to do, that he's just going to be such a big weapon on that side, especially if he's able to tuck in a little bit and Gusto's able to be the one that keeps the width. I'm sure the ball just looks so big to him in those closing minutes because he had time and space to make the right play. Now, there are a lot of people saying he should have passed the ball to Nkunku on the final goal, and I'm actually inclined to agree with that. You don't, that's okay. But like the end result is that he has 2 more assists. The ball to Connor was excellent for the game winner. So I wouldn't say his best day out by any means, but again, an effective day out. He had 2 more goal contributions. What are we talking about?
All right, and let's talk about the fact that we left it late, but we got it done. I think in general, in my mind, there was going to be a lot of questions. There were not going to be good questions for Pochettino about dropping this match to Roy Hodgson, losing any points, making a draw almost unacceptable against this side, given the amount of injuries that they had. We would have gone only in the 10th. We were basically sitting on 10th based upon goal difference ahead of Wolves. And Poch gets saved. I think one of our good friends of the podcast called it a got out of jail. This was their 3-word match review. Poch was asked at the end. He said, did you leave it late? And he's like, you asked me why. I think we deserved it on the second half. First half, no. First half, we were so disappointed. Performance wasn't great. We were slow. We were so flat and very disappointed. He benefits from making the change of Madueke to Nkunku. He gets a little bit of the forced substitution with Silva. Don't know if he would have made that necessarily if the injury didn't happen. But, it all worked out in the end. All came out in the wash. And now Chelsea win what I would say was arguably the last guaranteed win. Maybe you could chalk Leeds up if you really wanted to, but cup games are always a little weird, so I'm hesitant to give that. You're sitting Liverpool remaining the rest of the month. Like this was supposed to be 3 points and go home.
Yeah, I think contextually, if you think about us versus Palace and you rewind your brain to the first one where we barely won on a penalty in the 80th, 87th minute, whatever it was, you barely scraped by Palace twice. All right. It's a 5-2 aggregate. So, it looks way better than it actually was. But those 2 games were turgid for the most part. And you factor it into our league position, their league position, where they are, where we are. We haven't been that much better than them, and they're pretty bad. I hope it's a wake-up call. Like, I think there have been some games where this young team has walked in expecting to win without having earned that yet. Just because you beat Villa away doesn't mean shit at all. I think they walked in just expecting Palace to roll over, and Palace came out and counterpunched and hit us dead in the mouth. And I hope that there is no more taking whatever this momentum weird thing that we have right now is for granted. Like, this team needs to get healthy, which has been a huge problem, and they need to attack every game with the way that we played in the second half. Because if they do that, it could be a hell of a lot of fun. There could be a lot of great things that happen through the end of the year if they play the way they did in that second half. But the Jekyll and Hyde of the first half and the second half is a real concern. It's a real concern. We were very bad in the first half, Dan. Very bad.
It was not great. What was great, though, was Enzo Fernandez's post-game quotes. Wolf of Wall Street again moments. I'm still here.
I ain't fucking leaving.
Anywhere. He was saying, "I'm happy our Chelsea. We want to play the next Champions League. Get us back there first, then we can play the next one."
Yeah.
I don't know where the Levy rumors came from. They had spoken on social networks. I came out to totally deny that story. It's fake. He told ESPN after the match. So just, again, for anyone who's concerned, Enzo's not looking to leave. He's got a very long contract. It'd be very expensive to get him out of it in this moment. So enjoy the fact that he is now contributing goals and creating memes of defenders in this exact moment.
Yeah, and by the way, the gif of his goal today, Munoz comes in to try and take him out. He stops. Munoz then tries to back up and deflect the ball. He almost raised his arm to and I think he thought better of that. And then the finish is baller. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like pause, no lift off on the back foot, just ping right into the upper corner. Goalkeeper left with nothing to do. If he would have missed that and Nkunku was all the way on the far post with no one around him, there would have been an inquest, I believe, for why you wouldn't pass the ball. But he did finish it with aplomb. Again, you kind of think about his trajectory, 7 goal contributions this year, ramping up. Maybe these are the sorts of performances we expect, but he didn't have the best game either, right? So he, I think, gets a little bit of extra goodness at the end that makes up for a fine average performance. But hopefully there are more of the Villa type performances where he was so very clearly a cut above, and we've seen him be that good. More of those through the end of the year.
I mean, he's the 5th highest contributor, goals plus assists across all competitions this season, which is not where he was last season. Even in the half season rankings, if you take it from the January window kind of into the end of it, I mean, he was valuable, right? He's slowly showing that he can pay back the large investment that Chelsea have made into acquiring his services. But we're going to get to a day on the match. And look, Nick, I'm going to admit, I know Gusto should have been in there. I know Palmer should have been in there. I'm going to be very frank. But I feel like I had to throw some flowers to Connor, Condog, Gallagher, and Gallagher's season. 4 different ways to refer to our guy. Someone said Galadog should have been in there, Galahim, Golager, and then Galadog, apparently with a D-A-W-G, not a D-O-G, should have been in there. I apologize to the people, both the ones I offended for not making it serious enough, and for those who my lack of seriousness did not hit on the names that they were looking for. Anyway, Conor Gallagher ran away with it, 100% of the vote.
I think Gallagher is pretty good after a day like today, so I would have went with Gallagher personally, but Malo Gusto was my real man of the match. I thought he was outstanding.
Well, this was the last match of the long Premier League extended weekend. Man City started it off with a 2-0 win against Everton. Fulham beat Bournemouth 3-1. Liverpool beat Burnley 3-1. Sheffield beat Luton 3-1. That was the bit of a surprise. Tottenham beating Brighton 2-1. Brentford beating Wolves 2-0. Newcastle beating Forest 3-2. Arsenal absolutely demolishing West Ham, which unfortunately is a good result for us at 6-0. Man United beat Aston Villa 2-1, and then we beat Crystal Palace 3-1, which means the table, Nick, is Liverpool at the top on 54 points, Man City 52 with a game in hand, and Arsenal at 52 points as well. 24 played, though, versus the 23 of City. That Tottenham 24 played at 47 points, Villa at 46, Manchester United 6 at 41 points. And then you start to get into the 30s, ranging from 36 down to 34. We are in 10th. So again, only 2 points separating 10th and 6th position at the moment. Still hope that Chelsea might be able to jump up a couple of spots with a little bit of luck and some bad performances like what we've seen from some of the teams ahead of us.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Villa feel like they're kind of on a slide. Kamara's now out with an ACL through the end of the year. Feels like that feel good story for them, and for Matt Law is coming to an abrupt close, losing to United. If we had taken care of any sort of legitimate business this year, we would easily be 7th, 6th place with a shot at Europe. There's I think a 77% chance that whoever finishes 5th in the Premier League is going to get into Europe next year, into the Champions League. So, it was right there for us. But, Brighton only 1 point ahead of us in 9th. West Ham hopefully faltering. It's only 2 points ahead of us. Same with Newcastle. On a way better goal difference, though, unfortunately. And then United, 7 points better than we are. Yeesh.
Only maybe saving graces are the fact that we get to play a couple of those teams still on the reverse fixture. So those are big, big matches at the end of the season. Third to last game will be the match against West Ham. The match against before that, four from the back, Aston Villa, and then Brighton. So that run between April 20th and May 4th currently huge, as well as that April 3rd match against Manchester United. But that's going to do it for this one. I mean, Chelsea sit firmly in 10th place. We've made up some ground. Still a lot of work to do, and we don't have another match until the weekend. So we get to absolutely stew at the fact of how bad it might be this weekend against Manchester City, who, as always, I think, are champions elect until someone proves to me otherwise.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I think good result for Chelsea at the weekend. You guys will cover this in the preview, but if we can come out of there with a draw and play, any sort of decent football, it's a really tough place to play, obviously. So let's hope the boys go up and show something, because that was kind of the start of, if you think back to October, like, will Chelsea be any good this year? 4-4 draw against City. That was a crazy match. Feels like 10 years ago at this point. So let's see what they do. But, we're +1 goal differential now, so don't screw it up.
As you always dreamed about as a young child, Nick, that +1 goal difference.
As a young boy, yeah.
Well, look, you don't have to worry about a thing, because we have more podcasts coming this week. Plenty of great conversation from our wonderful friends, our esteemed colleagues, and all part of the Men in Blazers Media Network. So get involved. Stay tuned. We'll be back with you several times this week. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.